Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about the 5 different T sounds in American English. One of the most frequently asked questions I get as an accent reduction coach is, what's going on with the letter T in English and why are there so many different ways to pronounce it? I wrote a blog post some time ago describing the 5 sounds that the letter T can make in English, but it's just one of those things that's hard to describe by the written word. The medium of video is much more conducive to demonstrating how sounds are made, so this video blog is a follow-up / update on how to pronounce the letter T in English. I'm going to link to that previous blog post too, because it has a bunch of good examples beyond what we'll review here. Anyways, as I've mentioned, there are 5 sounds that the letter T can make, represented by each of the following words: butter, kitten, table, can't, bats. So let's break down the 5 types of T one at a time and give the rules of when you use each one, plus some examples. First, we have the alveolar flap, sometimes known as an alveolar tap, as in the word butter. So how do you make the alveolar flap sound? You touch the tip of your tongue lightly and quickly to the roof of your mouth just behind your top front teeth, making something like a light D sound, like this: butter, butter. Okay, so if you see the letter T in a word, how do you know to pronounce it as an alveolar flap, or a light quick D? To put it simply, if the letter T is between 2 vowel sounds, not necessarily vowel letters, but vowel sounds, then you pronounce it like the alveolar flap. For example, in the words bitter, caterpillar, and letter. Second, we have the glottal stop, as in the word cotton. So how do you make the glottal stop? What you do is you suddenly cut off your voice in the back of your throat, just like in the middle of the sound uh-oh. Do you hear it? Uh-oh. So, if you see the letter T in a word, how do you know to pronounce it like a glottal stop? The answer is that the glottal stop appears either before an unstressed un sound, as in Latin, button, or written, or when a syllable ends with a T just before a consonant sound, as in football, flightless, and atlas. Third, we have the aspirated T, as in the word top. The way you make the aspirated T is that you touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth just behind your top front teeth, like this. And then you make the T sound. Then you immediately pull your tongue back and downward to release a puff of air. And here's a tip to know if you're saying it correctly. When you say the T sound, put your hand in front of your mouth like this. T. And if you feel a burst of air on your hand the instant after you say it, T. So I felt a burst of air on my hand. So if you feel that burst of air, you're doing it right. So if you see the letter T in a word, how do you know to pronounce it as an aspirated T? There are 3 cases where you would pronounce it as an aspirated T. When the word starts with T, as in tango or took, or at the beginning of a stressed syllable, as in attack or return, or after any consonant sound except N, as in the words doctor or empty. Fourth, we have the held T, sometimes called unreleased T or unaspirated T. So how do you make the held T? You touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth, just behind your top front teeth, making the sound of the T, but then you hold your tongue for an extra moment so that the puff of air is held in and not released. For example, cat, cat. So there's no puff of air after that one as there was in the previous example. So if you see the letter T in a word, you know to pronounce it as the held T if it appears as the last letter of the word. For example, the words bat, goat, can't, won't. So I put my tongue in the same position as any T, or rather as the aspirated T. It's in the same position, except it's unreleased air. Won't. I just hold my tongue there for the end of the word won't, for example. Fifth and last of all, we have just T. It doesn't really have a special name. You can make this ordinary T sound by touching your tongue firmly to the roof of your mouth, just behind your top front teeth. Then pulling it back, making a T sound. There is no release of air at all, and also make sure it does not resemble the D sound. An example of this is the pronunciation of the letter T in the word stop. The rule here is, if you see the letter T in a word, you know to pronounce it this way if the letter T appears either before or after the S sound, as in the words bats or store, or after N, unless T is the last letter of the word. So examples of this would be central, printer, or sentence. So these are some of the many ways we pronounce the letter T in American English. As I mentioned, be sure to check out the link to the blog post with even more examples so you can practice your 5 types of T. See you next time.